is Matt Valley, and this is the Rock and Roll Research Podcast, where we feature the super cool backstories and side gigs of the market research and insights pros that you trust. I'm super excited about today's episode because we know that market research and insights is not just a U.S. Industry or U.S. business. It's worldwide, it's global, as is rock and roll, right? Rock and roll is global. So I'm super excited to welcome from Hyderabad, India, Winfred Samson to the program. Welcome, Winfred.
Thank you, Matt. Thanks for this opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Super excited to have you on the program. So Winfred Samson, some of you may know, is the founder and managing partner of a market research services firm called InsightSutras, which provides expert support to market research and consulting firms, both large and small, all over the world. And I first met Winfred, mid-2000s or so, when I was at a company called MarketTools, which was later acquired by MetrixLab. Winfred and I worked very closely together there for some time, and he went on to spend something like 15 years at that organization, which is maybe a record, or at least close to it. But really wonderful career he had at MarketTools and MetrixLab, and started his career actually with a company that was purchased by AC Nielsen. But the exciting thing about Winfred that a lot of people don't know is that, because he's too modest and he doesn't talk about it, but he's super passionate about music. And not only is he passionate about music, but he knows a thing or two about playing it as well. So super excited to have you on the program, Winfred.
Thank you, Matt.
Absolutely. So let's start with your professional career. So you've spent a long time in insights and you've decided to stay. So I'd love to know about how you got started in this industry and how your career has sort of progressed and unfolded.
Sure. Definitely, everyone has some kind of an ambition or aspiration when they are in school, college. I never had any kind of an aspiration, even the smallest inkling, that I would be ending up in this industry. It's been just over 3 decades that I have spent in this insights and market research industry. I always wanted to be a musician, have a studio on my own, have a world tour, all that during the college days. And but yes, as destiny would have it, here I am. But it's so nice to be talking about it because no one talks about it. Congratulations to you for picking up this very rare niche topic and touching base with people who would otherwise be just faded and forgotten. So thank you for doing that. And that's something that I saw some of your podcasts, and I was so glad to hear their stories. So my story in this industry began at a very young age of 18 and a half or 19 years, when I was still in my undergrad. And one of my friend's elder brother, who had just completed his MBA, I'm talking about the late 80s, 88 to be precise, 1988.
Okay.
And that's the time when he wanted some volunteers for some market research project. The work was that you had to go to gas stations, stand there and ask a few questions to people on tires. It was, the project code name was Operation Rain Check. Okay.
Okay.
That's how I started. Cool. I got some little amount as pocket money, and that's how I started. So I started doing a few more projects out of interest from the same source. Mm-hmm. And as soon as I finished my graduation in chemistry, I joined this firm on a temporary basis. Okay. So I had some few good bosses to work under on a temporary basis, and they kind of identified some potential in me, and they started giving me roles which otherwise at a junior position, it's seldom people would get. Roles like going and making, a writing of reports, doing some kind of an analysis, going and meeting some key clients. And within within maybe a year, I was given an opportunity to go and present to a key client. That's how it started. And then I left that after about 18 months of temporary work in that firm, wherein most of the projects were B2B. And then I did my full-time MBA. And during my full-time MBA from University of Pune, which is near Mumbai, I was working as an associate manager projects in a small boutique market research firm. And that again was B2B. And the managing director of that firm, she was a lady, and she used to be the visiting faculty in some of the premier global MBA institutes. She used to take market research. And in one of our trips to the UK, where she every October she used to go and teach market research there, and she used to come back, and she asked me to write case studies. So what she asked me to do is take some of our previous reports that we had done, and she asked me to prepare case studies out of that. And that is how I kind of understood, from cover to cover, how a market research report is written, because I got to study a lot of already completed research reports, and I was writing case studies for students of various colleges in Europe and UK, to be precise. In that region, she was going, and that's how my journey started. And then in the year 92, I completed my MBA and went to Mumbai to join a company called Operations Research Group, which eventually, due to several M&As, is what in India it's called the Nielsen's company now. It's a global company, and that's how I started. So when we met in MarketTools, I had already completed about 15 years of client-facing role, primarily in the B2B and customer satisfaction CSM segment. And I had a brief stint in the Middle East, based out of Riyadh, covering all the GCC countries. And then I had this opportunity at MarketTools, which was on the operations side. So from the year 2005 onwards, I was totally on the back office, managing service delivery for global research organizations. And that's where I learned the other side, the non-client facing role. And I also have closely encountered and witnessed how the industry has evolved. Because when I started, Windows didn't exist, internet wasn't there. And now things have changed. Technology has disrupted so many things. And the client's consumption patterns have changed. So that's my little journey. Now
talk a little bit about MarketTools, because so much changed between when you started and when you left MetrixLab, both in terms of, as you mentioned, the industry changed a lot and the tools and techniques, and but also the scope of the role changed quite a bit. But at some point, obviously, you decided to break off on your own. So can you talk a little bit about that as well?
Yeah. So, having got experience from both the side, the client-facing market researcher role and the, running a delivery organization, support organization for a global market research company, working almost 24/7 for, almost all continents except Antarctica. That really, I learned a lot. Initially, I was in, quite a disagreement to the model of operations, because, I saw technology disrupt so many things. So I had to learn and accept some of these things, and then eventually embraced and before scaling up and growing the organization. So what transition I saw was from, from a consultant who would actually do a lot of primary research and assimilate all the information, ponder over it, do in-depth analysis, take micro and macro level factors that influence, and then come up with a with an analysis and eventually a recommendation for any kind of decision. Now all of that, which took time, many weeks, is truncated to a few days or maybe
Right.
few hours.
Yep.
And that was something which I wasn't able to accept totally. And I did go through a tough learning curve. Eventually, I understood, why, this is the way it is,
Sure.
because clients, the demands of the clients, the needs of the clients also has undergone a massive change. And to put up with that, this thing was required. And the reason why I, wanted to start on my own was that I wanted to marry both these, uh, you know, philosophy or viewpoints of, is this a good research, is this a bad research, is
Right.
technology good for research? And I think the answer lies somewhere in between. A good balance of both is what is required, and many of our research and insights consumers are missing out big time on that. And I thought that I would start something in which we drive home this point that decisions have to be made, and there has to be some kind of a human intellect and human intelligence also involved, not just uh, technology and mechanized processes which are templatized. So that was my driving factor behind starting my my company, InsightSutras.
Yeah, that's great. Well, so some listeners may know that I've been involved to some extent in helping you out in the early stages of that, along with a couple of other people, Russ Rubin and Dave Rosenblatt.
Yeah.
All of us met at MarketTools once upon a time, so it's kind of like getting the band back together, man. So
Yes, indeed.
it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. So let's talk music, Winfred, because you and I have talked music before, and you've alluded to the fact that you wanted to have your own studio and you wanted that to be part of your career. So talk about your journey in music and maybe a little bit about some of your favorite moments.
Okay. So, um, before I begin, again, I want to reiterate that I'm not an accomplished musician, but I do relate myself very closely to music. My family has a very close, contribution to the industry, at least in the Indian, music industry,
Mm-hmm.
uh, by inventing few of the traditional musical instruments that come. My family had
Oh,
contributed to
cool.
that. My mom was a blend of both Carnatic. Carnatic is a form of Indian classical music. So
Okay.
there are two main streams in India for Indian classical. One is called Hindustani, and which is more prevalent in the north of India, and one is Carnatic, which is more prevalent in the south of India. So in the late 40s and mid 50s, my mom was into Carnatic music. She did her post graduation in that during those days, and
Okay.
not only classical Carnatic music, but also she was a lead soprano in the Madras Musical Association. I know you wouldn't know. There was a famous person by name Handel Manuel. So she was under his tutorship and part of the choral music society there
Oh, wow.
that time. She was one of the lead sopranos, and so naturally I got some of that rubbed into me.
Yeah.
Though I'm not a vocalist, but I do understand music. I can play a few ragas in my guitar, though I'm not a
Okay.
guitarist. I can play the keyboard, though I never got any formal education. So that became a drawback in my later years when I actually wanted to participate or go into studios for some small budget movies. I was I was hit upon the reality that you need to know sight reading, you needed to know this thing. I never
Yeah.
had I never learned music formally.
Okay.
Yeah, that disqualified me to, be a backup keyboard player in the little opportunities that I got. Backup of a backup maybe. Then I couldn't get,
Sure.
because you had to have that minimum qualification. You had to know sight reading,
Yeah.
and that was something which I never formally, learned. Uh, I would like to tell an interesting story. This was My father was in the Indian Air Force, so we moved all across India. So this is a story. I think we were in Punjab, which is a North Indian state, and capital of Punjab, Chandigarh. There's an Air Force station, uh, and we were there. I was a schoolboy. This is in late 70s. Okay,
Hmm.
so late 70s, early 80s, during those times. I clearly remember 1979 as International Children's Year. Okay, and that's when I was wanting to have a keyboard of my own, and I used to write to Yamaha and Casio, companies,
Right.
and they send me brochures, catalogs, and that's all. So what I used to do is I used to take big chart paper and with colored felt pen, I used to draw the keyboards and imagine the sounds and play the keyboard on paper. That's the closest that I could get. And yeah, in 83, I got my first keyboard, which was the size, you can't call it keyboard, maybe. It was only, you could actually hold it and play like this.
Okay.
Okay, it's
Yeah.
this size. It was Casio VL Tone. That was the model number. And with that, I started playing. I started giving, kind of performances in school programs,
Yeah.
uh, the annual day, and so on and so forth. And that's how it started. My first big break, I would say, big break from my standards, was when I was called in to play church music.
Okay.
It happened so that our organist was unwell, and that's when people approached me. Can you fill in? And that's how I got an opportunity to play during the service at the church for
Hmm.
many weeks. Whenever the organist was on tour or not available, I used to get my early days were on an organ which has the pedal organs. You remember, you press the pedals and then you play that. Of course, there was
Right.
a huge pipe organ, but I never got to play in the pipe organ because that was out of bounds. But yes, I consider that as one of the good breaks that I got,
Sure.
uh, playing in the church, because you cannot afford to go wrong. And there is a congregation. I knew, how to pace each of the hymns that were there, because the congregation would start late and drag on. So, either to follow the congregation, you will lose. So to lead the congregation, you have to be really, yeah, be focused. So all those
Right.
things I learned. This was, I think, in the mid 80s. Yeah.
Okay.
And then from, let's say, 85, 86 onwards till maybe 1991, regularly during India's biggest festival, Diwali, this
Hmm.
festival of lights.
Yep.
During that time, Diwali and Dashera, during that time, there would be a 10-day vacation for school. And
Hmm.
during that school vacation time, I used to regularly go to some of these gospel meetings, wherein
Hmm.
they would call me to play for different choirs. And that's when I got recognition, because they used to have 3 or 4 days of gospel meetings or revival meetings, something like that. So
Right.
I used to be playing for 4 or 5 different um, uh, choirs.
Right.
And yeah, so those were typically 8 to 12,000
Oh,
crowd.
8 to 12,000, did you say?
Yeah.
Oh my
So
God.
yeah, these are gospel
No
meetings.
pressure.
Yeah. So this was an annual affair. So that's when I actually my size of the keyboard from this became this much, maybe 2.5 feet long, and that's how I used to manage. And yeah, all without any formal training, all by ear, learned that. But yes, end of the day, I was into music
Yeah.
in whichever way that I could. So alongside my career also grew. So after I completed my MBA, or let me put it this way, during my MBA, I had the first opportunity to do a recording do a studio recording. It
Okay.
was not a digital recording. It had 8 tracks. So it
Hmm.
wasn't even a 16-track recording. It was 8 tracks,
Sure.
and so I had co-written this song for a road track International Silver Jubilee. I think it was 1992, if I'm not mistaken. The name of the song was "Rise Above the Rest."
Hmm.
So I recorded that song. I had sung a part of it, composed
Oh,
music
nice.
a bit along with a senior composer, and had one of my choirs from Mizoram uh, who gave voice pieces, and one of the guys played the lead guitar. So the 8-track recording is something, and we had a master cassette.
Yeah.
I preserved it for so long. You won't believe, Matt. Uh, I think 2 or 3 years back, one of my colleagues at MetrixLab helped me convert that into a digital recording. The old
Oh, okay. All right. I got to hear
cassette,
that. We can maybe
1990,
share it.
yeah, 1991 or 92. 92, I think, International Silver Jubilee year for our track club. So, so that was the year. So yeah, that was my only time that I went into a studio and recorded.
Yeah.
So, post that, it's all been career, and the closest that I could get to a rock and roll was being associated with a band called Malfunction, which
Yeah.
was led by my a very good friend who is unfortunately no more, Neville D'Souza from Mumbai. So yeah, these guys used to jam up, and I always used to be at his place,
Yeah.
and that's where I learned some of the rock bands. And I still remember the day when the bad news came about Kurt Cobain. So we were all kind of actually practicing something, and we all I was a associate research director at the company, which is now which became AC Nielsen and then Nielsen. So during those times, this was in the mid 90s. That's
Okay.
when
Yeah.
this happened. Yeah. So that's the closest I got to rock and roll. Otherwise, it was mostly gospel, choral music, and of course, we did a bit of things which you do for survival.
That's right.
Going to a senior police officer's daughter's birthday party
Yeah.
and playing and getting some bucks out of that, and then celebrating. So yeah, I've done many of those. Uh, yeah, and after the 90s, I think I stopped playing. So
Yeah.
that's
Well, there's always time. There's always time. So let me ask you this then, Winfred. So you really had a big focus on music, and then after that, a big focus on career and insights. Were there any lessons or anything that you learned from your music experience that you were able to apply in your professional career?
yes, I think so. I think so. I think music. You know, Let me put it this way. Um, I, if you ask me which genre you belong to, I would be confused. I won't have an answer
Hmm.
uh, because I love music, uh, which has which can convey a meaning, which
Right.
can make you feel some kind of an emotion, and I just fall in love with that music. It could be Venga Boys to Led Zepp to Deep Purple to Jackson to Barbara Streisand to folk music to Yanni to
Sure.
everywhere you get that vibe. So I
Hmm.
love those kind of music, and that is why I think what I've learned is in my career is that this insights industry is actually gathering information, relevant information, processing it, applying logic and reasoning, aligning it to the client's objective and making some sense out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And one great aspect is observing. I think you may not like a music at the first go, but if you really start appreciating listening to the music, listening to the stories behind the lyrics, you actually get an entirely different experience. And I think I have seen that this is so true for our industry. I have applied it, believe it or not, I have applied it in whatever little research that I have done, in actually listening and observing to sources of information which are in our jargon respondents, right? So listening one key thing and appreciating their viewpoint rather than asking something that I want to know, rather than listening what they want to tell. And so that is one key thing, because uh, fundamentally this point gives a different meaning to the research that you do, because what we typically a research company does or a research agency does is takes the brief from the client, discusses at length what needs to be done, and goes out and executes it, part of which is collecting information, relevant information pertaining to that objective of that study, and so on and so forth. So many times it so happens that the research agency and the clients uh, miss out something which the customer wants to say, or because it's not there. Unless you go and start talking to them, observing them, then something comes out. And then several times over, I've gone and told the client, listen, this is what the client is expecting. This is what they're saying. We had 3 rounds of meeting before finalizing the questionnaire, but we never thought about this. So that's what listening and observing or appreciating what the client says brings about, which is definitely what music has taught me.
Sure, that's a really insightful answer. I appreciate that. So you've been around this industry now for a long time, and you've seen a lot of change. What do you think is on the horizon? Do you have a thought on what the future looks like?
Yeah, as I said, Matt, technology is there. It's like, I know you're still part of a band and you had your reunion, and you're so into performing great going. So yes, so that is actually composing and playing music, giving live performances. Okay, keep that on one side. On the other side, you have technology. You have DJs who can create music. So the crowd laps up both, live performance as well as, they love DJs.
Sure.
So the industry, has both these end of spectrums. One is the hardcore, conventional types of primary research, which I think cannot be totally replaced. On the other side, you have technology intervention, disruptions, quick, fast turnaround, agile research, so on and so forth.
Right.
Both are music. Okay, and the clients want both. So can you take a stand that this is right and this is not right? I don't think so. I think both are important, and the right way to go is make the client understand that this both thing is important. For example, I have encountered several examples of big brands investing so much huge money in getting things done quick, fast, using the best of technologies in the world, but actually making a decision which is not actually an intelligent decision. And that's one of the reasons which I strongly felt about that there has to be an even balance. You cannot replace human intellect and human intelligence. It's like, there's going away from music. I can also give an example. Just earlier this week, I was talking to a doctor, whom I was trying to build a strategy for his super specialty hospital. He wanted to be number one in one of the cities in India. And while discussing that, we came upon this topic: e-medicines, e-surgery, robotic surgery, so on and so forth. And on the other hand, the doctor's touch. or the physical presence, the patient gets assured that this is a doctor that I can relate to. So
Right.
it both makes sense. It both are a process that needs to be married for good healing to happen. And
Right.
today's market research industry is actually need to take a pause and answer this, especially the consumers who are paying millions of dollars to get these things done quick, fast, templatized, good look, appealing. But in the end, it's the insight. It's the insight that you apply in a decision.
Right.
That's what matters, and I think I think we need to uh, evangelize this blend of both,
Hmm.
because you cannot just live without each other. Technology is a must, but it's not everything.
Yeah.
I think I stand there, and I can draw a parallel between what DJ or music can be composed, music can be manufactured. Do you
Yeah.
agree?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I love the analogy. I mean,
Yeah.
it's spot on.
So
I'm going to
so
steal it and use it.
yeah, consumers can pay. Anybody can become a musician nowadays.
Yeah.
They need to do a bit of technology. Okay,
Yeah.
they cannot be compose music. The client will not is buying both, and I think that's what we need to see where we stand. And I think there will be a realization in the client side that both is needed, and I think that's where the real value lies of
Yeah.
insights industry.
Here, 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 here. All right. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit, Winfred. So this is a podcast, right? So I'm curious to know if there are other media, whether it be podcasts or blogs or something else, that you find particularly inspirational or enjoyable that you want to share with others.
Well, I think the podcast, social media is the future of business, I guess. Okay, at least as far as I can see in the coming decade, definitely this is the future of any business. Having a presence in these is definitely there. From a research perspective, having a, a good grip on, doing research based on different media is quite important in terms of podcasts. I'm not a big podcast guy. I don't listen to podcasts, but I'm beginning to, because since last 6 months I've kind of started discovering these podcasts. My main vote would go to that media which complements a lifestyle, or which you do not have to take the time out, but which you can do it on the go and
Right.
educate yourself, create awareness,
Mm-hmm.
have an entertainment, all that on the go. Because right now, what I find is people have very little time,
Yeah.
and anything which complements a journey, which they can, whether they are driving, whether they are doing anything, and if they can listen or
Yeah.
or
Multitasking.
view,
Hyper efficient.
yeah, that is the medium that is going to matter.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, so I have just one more question for you, Winfred, and it's the most
Yeah.
important question in this interview for sure. So, uh, you're stranded on a desert island, right? And you've got three records of your choice to keep you company for the end of your days. What are they?
Okay, so that's the condition. So I'm doomed in an island.
You're doomed on an island, yes.
Okay. All right. All right. So, okay. Even if you had asked me this question, and given me a week's time, I would not have come down. Because music is such that, it's very difficult to choose. But since you have asked the top three, and I'm sure, after naming them, I said, no, maybe not this, maybe that. Okay. So I think what I would do is, since you said I'm doomed and I cannot get out of that island, So I will do what music does for me. Okay.
Okay.
2 or 3 distinct things. It inspires, motivates. So I will listen to those kind of music.
Sure.
It could be gospel, and it could be some of the very good inspirational music. I relate music, sometimes to situations. For example, Scorpions, playing at the, Berlin Wall was broken.
Okay, Scorpions, that's one.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Mark Knopfler's guitar work in Sultans of Swing, Alchemy Live, definitely has to be there.
Very nice.
Some of the other, it's, of course, I know you're in Texas now, so Jim Reeves is something I grew up with. My entire family.
Oh, wow.
Jim Reeves. So, during my school, college days, it was only Jim Reeves. So I have the entire collection with me. So,
oh, wonderful.
Yeah, so that has to be there. So he sings both country and gospel. Some of these his gospel songs. So yeah, so that will be there, and maybe definitely has to be a female voice. Anywhere from Mariah Carey to Barbara Streisand. Any one of them, both have done some good numbers.
All right. We'll take it. We'll take it. You mentioned 5, but I'm going to give you a break here. So it's good.
Yes, I have a whole lot of list. I can go on and on. So,
well, you can always email me if you think of any more. Like, oh, I wish I would have said such and such. I've already gotten a couple of those. So, all right, Winfred. Well, this has been a great conversation. Really appreciate you sharing your insights about your career and a little bit about some good stories from your days in music. So really appreciate that. And
thanks for having me, Matt. Thanks for having me, Matt. I want your podcast to grow because you're picking up individuals who otherwise would be, I wouldn't say unsung heroes, just unsung. So you are taking them out, making them tell their stories. It creates such a good vibe, Matt. Keep up the good work.
I appreciate that. Appreciate that, Winfred. Rock and roll.